Thank you. I'd like to call the March 2022 Airport Commission meeting to order. Mark, do you want to go ahead and do the roll call?
Sure. Michelle Bond,
Here.
Mayor Brar,
Here.
Alder Burke,
Present.
Alder Fazard,
Present.
John Halleck,
Yeah.
David Lorman,
Here.
and Kevin Munson.
Here.
We have all 7 present, plus Rich Morey and Mark Opitz.
Absolutely.
Staff.
Great. Wow. So next is the proof of posting and notice. Mark?
Posted in the front office here at City Hall, the entranceway at the airport. And we distributed it through our normal channels, our listserv, and on the, it's posted on our website.
Absolutely stellar. All right. Thank you. Next item is the approval of minutes. I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to take a look through it. And then somebody can make a motion.
This is Robert. I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, Robert makes a motion to approve. And anybody care to second?
I'll second that. This is Kevin.
Hey, Kevin. Okay, Kevin wants some seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Same sign. Okay, we approve the minutes. The next thing is the chairperson's report. I don't really have a lot to add, other than I got an email from Middleton regarding the lights that we're going to be putting in on the runway lights and the in lights. And it looks like everything is on plan. Materials have been identified. The planned date of May 2nd should be good to go. And if there's anything that needs to be done, they'll let us know. But the good news is this project is off to the races. So very good. Other than that, I really, well, first of all, is there any questions about that? About the project, what it is?
So I have a question that I looked at the 4 phases. Phase 1 is the most important, perhaps. So the airport will be closed for about 12 days for phase 1 or whatever. So my question is related to the maintenance of the lights budget that we have 5,000. So once we have these new lights, would it be about the same expense that maybe you would know or somebody else would?
Yeah, so the new lights, so the old lights are not LED lights. These lights are LED lights. And I would think that we would have some warranty associated with it. And it would be a great reduction in cost since the other lights are 17 years old. We left the budgeted amount in because we weren't really sure if they'd make the start date and what might happen between now and the start date. So to answer your question, I hope that and plan that that line item will be less, but we left it in there as a contingency.
Okay, excellent. Now, this planning looks the schedule is very tight, and which is great. Could there be any roadblocks that this project could be delayed? Because that would be, Rich wants to use it, other wants to use it. So, and if if we could do anything so that it doesn't happen.
Okay, I don't know if I understand the question about closing the airport.
And no, you got phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4.
Yes,
And there is some suggestion there that all those 4 phases could be done possibly at least phase 1 and 2 simultaneously. So
Yes.
what I'm really asking is that, number 1, is there some way to make it even expedited? And number 2, is there any other contingency in terms of if there's a rain or something else happening that which could delay the project and for which we should plan for or think about?
I think there are some contingency days built in. You know, whether or not they can do phase 1 and 2 or some of these simultaneously. I'm sure the contractor will do that. I don't know that I have an answer to your question.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, phase 2 noted that it could be done concurrently with phase 1. So I think they're trying to give some flexibility here to
Sure.
acknowledge that they could do some of these things.
Yeah, I don't know if they will or won't. So, I mean, that's the way, I can't guarantee they'll do them both at the same time. They'll know when they take it, once they get started, I suspect. So that would be my best guess.
I'm very pleased that this is moving forward after
Yes.
a lot of work and years of waiting. So it's I'm sure that will make Rich Mori very happy too. So, and all the pilots. So excellent.
Well, we're hoping that, you know, the airport's 15, 17, I don't know the exact age. And the entire airport needs to be renewed. And the good news is if we can get it all done on a timely basis, that means we got it 15, 16, 17 years to go of smooth sailing. So we take care of the asset and we hope the maintenance and costs, long-term costs are down. So that's basically all we can do. So,
And John, since these are LEDs, maybe a lot longer than 15, 17. So
a lot longer, yes.
a lot longer, yes.
Well, we hope so. So, okay. With that, if there's no other questions, I will move on to Rich and the airport manager's report. Richard?
Very good, John. Number of noise complaints are way down over last year. Again, from January 31 to February 25th, 2 overflight complaints for the same person. And they were addressed by myself via phone. And last year, in the same period, approximately, we had about 24 overflights. We actually had a third more operations this February than we did, this is more airplane company alone, than we did the previous February. So a third more operations and, 2 versus, 2 noise complaints. You can draw your own conclusions. No accidents or incidents, of course. I think I doubled up on the Four Lakes chapter event. That was in January. It was very good. Can't emphasize enough how important it is to get women involved in aviation, in my humble opinion. They only make up 7% of the pilots out there. Doesn't make any sense to me. Still looking for the Knox boxes. When they arrive, we'll figure out where to mount them, and actually we know where to mount them, and we'll set it up. We've started a private pilot ground school in person. First time we've done that really since COVID. And then very important to me, 80th anniversary of operating in Middleton for the Maury Airplane Company. We're looking forward to partnering with the EA chapter on their pancake breakfast and possibly another event. We'll figure out that as we go. I'm certainly going to try to put some stories from my grandfather's book or excerpts from it in the newspaper just about this event. It's very, 80 years of anything going strong is pretty good. All right, future events. Again, John, you fixed the to be determined on the runway replacement lights. Know when that's going to be happening, assuming everything goes as planned, which it should. 26th, another Youth and Aviation Club meeting, or maybe that'd be their second one. We have a 99s, Women in Aviation, and the EA Chapter 93 will all work on painting a compass rose on the ramp. This is something that you see at a lot of airports. It's done by the oldest women's flying organization, the 99s. It was started back in the days of Amelia Earhart. She was one of the founding members. They like to put up, this is not just a pretty event piece, it's very functional. It's set up so you can swing your compass on it. And we're going to put it out where we can see it right in front of the park area, just to the east of the terminal building and on the ramp to the north there. when they realize it's probably going to get scraped up when we do plowing, they'll come back in and touch it up. And more airplane company is going to be sponsoring all of the paint and a volunteer appreciation barbecue. All right. Doing a live seminar, July 10th, Chapter 93 Pancake Breakfast. That's back. That's wonderful.
When was that? I'm sorry, Rich, when was that?
July 10th.
July 10th. Thank you.
Yep. July 12th, we're going to be hosting a Meet Your Air Traffic Controller seminar in our hangar. We did that 2 years ago. We'll be doing it again. It was well received. Have people over from Madison. As you can tell, I had some time in my hands, so I went through and tried to get everything I could. July 23rd, Rock the Ramp. August 13th, Capital Speed. I don't know the dates, but there will be at least 3 Young Eagle flights to be conducted this year out of Maurice, another 3 out of Madison, I believe, or maybe 1 Madison, 1 Black Hawk, and 1 Wanakee, as well as some specialty flight events for underrepresented populations. Things that were not in which should be mentioned as ongoing. We have rented a excavator or a monster backhoe. I'm not sure how you would describe it, John, but with the brush head on it, and we're almost complete with the clearing of the brush on the ditches that were still remaining north of the runway. It's worked out very well. We should have it all done within the week. I believe it's going to cost us about $4,000 in rental, plus some, we had to pay for insurance on it and some diesel fuel. So I imagine it's going to be well under $5,000 and done in a week. Mechanically, it wasn't quite as much work as we did last year by hand, but it certainly shows the utility of having the right equipment and being able to do some work. And also today, they came out and drilled the soil samples for the dredging to make sure that the soil isn't contaminated. That they tried to do it by hand yesterday, and soil was still frozen, so they brought a drill rig out today and had it done. And that's pretty much it. I know you don't want to hear about the wildlife that's on the airport, but some of it has returned. And
Yes, so I have a couple of questions, and then I'll let the rest of the commissioners ask them. Why are we having such a big problem with the Knox boxes?
I thought we had ordered them and they should be in, but I don't know what happened with them or where they are.
So Mark, can you check on that?
Yeah, or if Rich I mean, I thought they were coming in. I thought EMS said they were here, but
Oh, no, the AED is mounted and on the wall and all set. That was through EMT or the EMTs, but the Knox boxes were ordered last summer, and I don't know why they never came in. So,
And we have a map. And we have a map where they're located, so we just need the materials.
right.
I had a question on the excavator and the clearing. So we had, I'll try to get my bearings here. So we had to the kind of to the northeast, there was the creek that we cleared one ear in with the goats, and there was the other end. So that is cleared to the property line.
Well, yeah, let me describe what got done. And again, it's the section west of where the Pheasant Branch Creek goes underneath the runway.
Yes.
Very wet in there. We're able to get the tract unit in there and take care of all the brush along that section of creek and the moist areas. So that's done. And then there was a north-south ditch between, I believe it's Leo Ziegler's property and the airport property that had been overrun with willows and such. And that is neither of these areas have ever seen any activity with goats. The one along where the Pheasant Branch Creek goes under the runway has been cleared by hand partially before, and now it's all done. But really that the major work was that north-south running ditch to the east of the airport property, parallel practically to the grass runway and north of the runway itself.
Well, would have thought where they did the prior remediation, and that would be as if you took the Pheasant Branch Creek at the east-west runway and then went to the north. It goes straight and then it turns to the west and then it makes a bend back to the north. There were a lot of trees in there.
Yeah, most of those have been removed, John. There are a few separate single trees that we didn't touch, and then the meander that Mead and Hunt re-engineered because it was washing out and actually planted willows there to hold the bank. We have not cut the willows there because we don't want additional erosion up there.
I haven't had a chance I've been underwater all week, but maybe I'll get a chance to come out and take a look, see tomorrow. So that's great. I mean, we spent last year $11,000 on just the goats, plus a lot of labor. And
Another
this year-
6,000, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of labor. And this year, in a matter of 3 or 4 days, we got rid of the rest of it, right? And
Yep.
so we should be in a place where we can burn, and then if we needed to even rent something again, at the end of the year, just to tidy up, we should be in pretty good shape.
John, I anticipate, if not every year, every other year, renting that piece of equipment. Now, what is grown is way down now, and we've done all the heavy lifting. We should be able to clean it up very well. It may well be that if we burn and get good burns in there, we won't have to rent the equipment and won't have to come in and redo. But my guess is the burn will not take the willows that have started up, and we'll probably have to revisit this every 2 to 3 years.
Okay, great. I don't have any other questions. Is any of the
The
commissioners?
mayor has his hand up, John.
Okay,
Yeah, so Rich, on the behalf of the city of Middleton, I would say congratulations for your 80th year of this airport. And I'm going to request Mark, work with Mark, and let's have a proclamation at the city council meeting. This is very important milestone. And secondly, I would like to say thank you for having the women in aviation, that 4 Lakes, as well as the other 99 women in aviation as well, and also the young Eagle Scouts. It's very, very important that we get more women and more the younger generation involved. And I want to say thank you for doing that.
Thank you,
And
Mayor.
work with Mark, and let's have a proclamation. Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
okay, is there any other questions? that we'd like
Kevin
to-
has his hand up, and so does David.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, hello, can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm in the library here. Just to Rich, hey, this is great news that you're able to meet in person again and have these ground schools at the airport. It's the best place to have ground schools. It's engaging. It adds to the mystique of aviation and all that. So congratulations, and I'm
Thank you, Kevin.
happy that you're back.
Yeah, so are we. It is limited. We only have 10. We intentionally limited to 10 individuals because that's how many tables we have in the conference room, and keep things separated. But we'll see what we can do next fall.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mark,
David Lorman.
David?
Yeah, just a follow-up question on the ongoing brushwork. Does our budget, do we able to adequately reflect, I guess, it seems, in my opinion, that we're just going to have a slightly higher ongoing expenses moving forward just to keep the brush under control around the banks.
So we'll talk about the adjusted budget, but the long and the short of it is that all of the third-party costs come out of the airport maintenance, and there's more than enough room within that to pay for the equipment. Matter of fact, we paid the unidentified goat and other expenses last year It still didn't go over budget. The labor component, however, according to the FBO contract, should be in that contract. So there'll be an adjustment. I made an adjustment into that contract to cover any additional labor. But if the machinery can do it all, then that labor won't exist and we'll be under budget again.
Yeah. Now, just a clarification, we didn't hire an operator. Our people were doing this in-house. And I will charge the hours that our people have worked on that, as I would always, to the city in our normal contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's probably nothing significant. Are there any other questions of Rich before we move on?
I just was going to make one comment under the report, and that is, in addition to inquiring about the Knox boxes, I'm going to reach out again to our Public Works crew. They were supposed to have painted last year taxi lane markings, Rich, remember?
Yeah.
We have the stencils, they just didn't have the time last year to paint. So I really want to make sure they get that in there on their calendar here for this year.
Well, we could probably hire the 99s and borrow your stencils, and they could, once they get done with their compass rose, they could go paint it. So run it as a fundraiser for them.
I like that thinking.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
You know, can I just have a few seconds?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thanks. You know, I'd like to also thank Rich. You know, we're all aware of the pilot shortage that's out there. It's a pretty serious thing that it could just in the next few years here impact the aviation transportation system. We need new pilots. There's a major shortage. And it's, you know, one of the reasons that our airport is so critical to the national transportation infrastructure. And Rich is just doing a great job training the pilots, training as many as he can. And hopefully we're doing our part along with the other 3,000 airports to try to get around this 20, 30,000 pilot shortage that we're going to have. And I just want to thank Rich again. I know how difficult it is to train pilots and get them up to speed. And another thing, the FAA, if they haven't already, they're lowering the airline transport requirement from 1,500 hours to 1,000, which is, to me, a desperate move to get pilots up in the air and get them into these commercial positions. And again, I just want to thank Rich for all he's doing, and just so people are aware of how critical these airports are to maintaining our aviation transportation infrastructure. Thank you, Rich.
It's a pleasure, honestly. I love teaching, but yes, we do need it. And now that it'll be even harder to hold on to instructors now that they're lowering the standards. So anyway, that's fine.
Anybody else? Mark, you can see the hands, I can't. Okay.
David has his hand up.
Okay, David.
Oh, no, maybe I forgot to take it back down. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I can't see that from where I'm at, so Mark, I have to rely on you.
No worries.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item, the airport master plan project update. Last thing we knew was the the Common Council voted. So now what?
So I had a briefing with the Mead and Hunt project manager, Rob Sims, yesterday, I guess that was. And they have fully re-engaged and have those 4 tasks that they're working on. I don't think that they will need the full 5 to 6 months that they originally anticipated. I think they're working on it and more expeditiously than that. And I'm hoping to have substantial progress here in the next few weeks to report.
Okay, great. We'll put this as an item, recurring item on the airport agenda so that we can kind of follow along what's happening, and if there's anything we need to do to engage, we can do that. So does anybody have any questions you'd like to ask of Mark before we move on? Mark, again, you could have to call it because I can't see the hands.
No hands.
Okay, all right, with that, let's move on. Thank you very much, Mark. So the one thing I wanted to try to do is a couple of things. One is we needed an adjusted end of the year number. And I also wanted to make an adjustment in the grant based on what we knew today. So I made some adjustments and here they are, and let me explain what they are. So the grants, we will get two, we're calling them CARES 2 reimbursements. And they're under grant, so was not budgeted, obviously last September, because it's new. So that'd be $46,000 that we will get. We turn in our invoices and then we get a refund. The next thing we went through is when I looked at the true up at the end of the year for Maury Airplane Company, there were a couple of extra items. One was the labor that was associated with the clearing. And in theory, that should all be part, if you read the requirements of the FBO agreement, that is part and parcel of it. So we looked at the numbers, Rich and I talked about it, and then we added in $4,000 additional dollars just to cover it. So I want people to be able to anticipate what might happen so that we can think ahead. So that's a number that we might think about. We budgeted 41, but it could come in at 45. The next thing was entitlements matched. Again, last September or whenever we did this, we had no visibility to the bipartisan infrastructure legislation. And it's a fact. So the entitlement matched for the 295,000 plus the 150,000 plus the 150 that we missed now totals 33,057. That's different than, I don't show on this sheet the amount of money that we have accrued in the entitlements area. We keep that on a separate sheet. This sheet is just really to show you cash. We have so much in the bank and we spend so much money. And so this is what we can anticipate. Mark, can you roll it up a little bit, see if there's anything else down below? So based on what we have here, because of the extra income, instead of losing $16,000, it looks like we will be at 916 to the good. The only thing that there are things we don't control. And one of them is outside services, which is basically illegal. The airport commission doesn't vote on it. We many times don't have any visibility to it. All we see is a number that comes up in the airport fund. So we have no control over it. I can't tell you what's going to happen with it. But we left it in as prior years at 22,000. Okay, Mark, you have the closing of the year now we can look at.
Oh.
Remember we had that extra sheet?
Yeah, oh, you know what? I uploaded the packet this morning, but I didn't download. Here, let me just go to the file separately.
Okay.
I just didn't download the packet to my computer.
Yeah, not a problem.
Oops, this is the wrong meeting. So here we go.
That's a year-end, our year-end report. Great. So after the books were balanced, this is where we ended up for the year. If you can continue to move over to where you can see the ending number. So there you go. So originally we planned, you have to take the 400,000 out. Originally we planned for $140,000 worth of cash. And we ended up with $297,000 worth of cash. And that's mostly attributed to refunds that we had got from the BOA to clean out their books, some additional grants that we had, and money that we would not normally see. Our budget is pretty well fixed. Hangar land leases, fuel flowage, those are the big items. Down below, if you can take a look at it, utilities, I'm not sure why they're higher, but maybe the rates changed during the year. If you go down to airport grounds maintenance, that is where the goats were, this $11,000 for the goats last year. And this is where we will take out the heavy equipment for the clearing. So as you can see with all in last year, keep going to the right, Mark. We got to keep going a little bit more. All in, we were at $25,000 and we allocated 30, so we were 10 under budget with all of those additional expenses last year. With the true up to Maury's, the airport contract, you can see we budgeted 39 and the extra work came in at 44, and that was the extra labor to clear, and that's why I upped this year's. So that's that. Again, legal, that's the 22,000, came in at 21,322. I don't know why we spend so much legal fees. I have no.
Don't know what, I'm sorry.
I don't know why we spend so much on legal.
Because we have a lot of matters that have been brought to the city attorney's attention.
I get that, but are they matters that they're really not operational per se? They have to do with, I don't know, the town, or I guess the things with the master plan and all that. And I'm hoping that that will go away. We don't know, I understand, but we leave it there. I'm just trying to make a point. We have no control over it. The $1,620 that we spend under kind of a miscellaneous, that was a bust to 30,000. That's because we got stuck with the survey. I attended the finance, and finance says, well, you're paying for it, end of story. The problem I had with finance, honestly, is they aren't looking at long-term costs of running this airport. The $6 million for the work we're gonna have to do. It's great if you just look and say, oh my God, look at that, they got $500,000, let's spend it. But let me tell you, it will come to roost if you don't look ahead and plan ahead, and either we conserve and we run a tight ship now, or a future common council and a future airport commission, I probably won't be on it. It's going to have to reconcile all this stuff, and I don't know how they're going to do it. So I was pretty disappointed about that, but it is what it is. So we had a final number of 166, the 297, which is, we'd be underwater if it wasn't for all of that. And we were to the good 131,000 for the year. And we end up at the end of the year with about $571,000 in the airport revolving fund. So if anybody has any questions about that, I will be happy to answer them.
And before somebody asks the question, let me just also ask the mayor or the two council members if you would like to update the commission on the council's action regarding the other commission's other recommendation regarding the taking on the fuel farm project.
Why don't we do that when we get to the fuel farm?
Oh, okay, sure, sorry. I just thought it was a budget issue, but fair enough.
Yeah.
Mayor has his hand up.
Mark, I have a question that how much do we get from the BOA in terms of the block grant? Is that about 180K, and how do we use it?
We have 5 years. We have a standard $150,000 a year in entitlements. There is nothing encumbered for this year. In addition, we have for the next 5 years under the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, we have an additional roughly 295,000. The matching funds that we put in are on top of that. So you add those two numbers together, take 9% of it, that's what we add, and then add that back in. So the number that we get to spend tonight, I had that in last month's. You could just do the math, it's 150 and 295, and then add on top of it another 20, and that's what we have every year to spend. But remember, we have $6 million for the runways to repair, and that is not discretionary. You are obligated under your assurances to maintain the airport. So this isn't something you can just say, well, let's push it off a year or two. That, as they say, that dog's not going to hunt. You have to maintain. If you're going to honor your contract, you have to maintain.
So So that 150,000 which we get every year, it's accumulative, so it can be used only for it can't be used as a operational expense. Is that true?
No, it cannot be
John?
used, no operating expense. It can only be used for BOA sanctioned projects.
Okay, only for the project, so, okay, thank you.
Yeah, like the
Essentially, the
resurfacing and the lights.
essentially the projects that we have petitioned for. The petition process involves making projects eligible for federal funding.
Okay,
It doesn't obligate us to do them, but it makes them eligible.
One thing we don't know and we're still trying to resolve is how much time do we have before we have to spend the $295,000? There could be a shorter window on that causes us to have to use the money in some fashion. Otherwise, we will lose it. But on the other hand, there may be people out there that can't use their 285,000, and we may have a project that we could use it on, and we may get it. All of this is very dynamic, and Josh works on this regularly, and I try to follow up with Josh, and so it really is a lot of this is there's just a lot of moving parts when it comes to government funding. So, but we're on top of it, and we'll make use of everything that we can.
thank you.
Anybody else have their hands up, Mark?
Kevin,
Kevin, go ahead.
Hi, so I was also under the impression that, I wasn't under the impression, I understood, and this goes back whatever, a year or so, that the survey would not be charged back to the airport budget. How was that decision made? Can someone explain the details on how that decision was made to charge that money back to the budget? Thank you.
Yeah, I can tell you what I was told. I was told that they didn't account for the 280, the 28,500 in the city's budget. So there was no money allocated for it. So they shoved it over to the airport fund.
I guess to state it another way, what we could have done as a city going into the 2021 budget, so the fall of 2020, we could have said, hey, we've committed to do a community survey. We should budget for that. I mean, ideally, that's what should have happened at that point. I mean, I didn't think of it. Obviously, none of us thought of it. So then when we got the proposal in, we decided it was time to go ahead with the survey. The city administrator worked with Polco to obtain a proposal. Proposal ended up being 28,500, and there was no other funding source other than the airport fund. And so the council made the decision last summer to take that from the airport fund, to assign that to the airport fund.
That's my understanding too.
Yeah.
Kevin, that answer your question? Kevin?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Okay. Are there any other questions regarding the budget and the true up at the end of the year?
Yes. So I guess what I'm seeing here, and I'm following on Kevin's question. So isn't this an opportunity for the city common council to really start, drafting some of their own, call it internal resolutions, policies, whatever? I mean, you just can't do that. Okay, you can't sit in a committee and say we're going to take money from another operation pool because we want to, without some prior approval to do that. Either coming back to that commission, so at least the commission's aware of it, can ask questions, point out the facts of the matter, that if we're to plan to, down the road, repair runways and do major infrastructure projects, then the money will never exist if this is going to be the city's policy.
Yes.
In operating business this way. I mean, that's not how, that's just, it's poor business is what it is.
Well, so here's the argument that I made. So the city manager made the argument that we didn't budget for it. And then my argument back to him was, we didn't budget for it either. And the finance committee approved our budget. So we're in the same place that you're at. So I think it just came down to the city has no money and we had money. And it says, well, there's 500,000 here, let's go spend it. I mean, that's maybe oversimplified, but that's my personal takeaway.
This is Robert, I'll just weigh in. I mean, it is a little oversimplified, but you have the gist of it. The fact of the matter is, it's all city money, but communication probably does need to be improved. I mean, at the end of the day, there should be, as you said, David, a back and forth conversation so that before the city at large says, oh, we're going to assign this expense to this particular airport fund, the airport should have a chance to talk it over with them to say, well, wait, you need to know this about where this, yes, we have $500,000, but we have $600,000 we're going to need to spend on this date. And we only get so much money a year. And so, I think, there are probably some improvements that can be made to communication, because while the city does have a right to take the money from one part of government and put it into another part of government, I think better communication might assuage some of the problems that we're concerned about here. So I think we can do that better in the future, and that's my take on it.
Yeah, well, Mark Sullivan made it very clear to me at the finance meeting that the airport commission is advisory, and the city can decide what it wants to do with the money one way or another. That was the long and short of it.
Yeah, that's pretty brusque. Again, more communication, two-way communication, I should say, might help everybody make decisions that everybody else can live with as well. So I think there's room for improvement, but I think going forward we can do better. I think we are where we are today, and we're just going to have to move forward with that.
Yeah. Well, I'm still bristling, and so you can sense that. I mean, we're working really, really hard to maintain a budget, have a long-term plan, and to make sure the taxpayers don't get dinged down the road. And it's really hard when there's this extra checkbook out there somewhere that you don't have control of, and people are writing checks. And so I'll just leave it at that. And so it is what it is for now, and we'll decide where we have to, hopefully things will change.
Well, I think what's important to point out is that, I guess, call it the good fiscal management by the airport is basically being punished by poor decision-making and fiscal management by others. And if the city isn't going to put anything in place to do that, there needs to be a way, at least internally, to make sure there are some checks and balances.
Well, the other thing, and I know we've said this before, and I'll say it one more time. The airport, they consider the airport an enterprise fund, and the definition of that, if it's self-sustaining, it generates the money and it pays its bills, right? And basically it's a closed economy. And the fact of the matter is, on a day-to-day basis, if you don't take into consideration that the whole infrastructure is going to need to be replaced, that's very doable. But if you have to take and replace and resurface all your runways, replace all your lights, redo all your painting and do all the other things on a regular periodic basis, that doesn't really work. And I know we are constantly compared to the golf course. I mean, the golf course has got concessions. The golf cart's got all these different, they can create their own revenue. We don't even own our own FBO building. We don't even have our own rent. So unlike the airport, and by the way, we're mandated all this maintenance. We don't have a choice to say, we're going to skip this for a couple of years. I mean, when BOA looks at it and says, you're at 70 or 80%, and we need to schedule it, it's going to get scheduled. So they're really not, they're kind of apples and oranges. And I'm trying to make sure everybody understands the difference, and maybe things will change in the future with good communications. I hope so. Okay. Are there any other questions on this? And we'll move on to the next one. Okay, let's move on to the next one then. So the next idea, we really don't have a lot of slides for this, but we can discuss this. There's the update on migrating from leaded to unleaded fuel. So there's, within the last 30 days, there are some things that have changed. David probably could talk to you a minute about the new BOA, the FAA. What is their plan? So David, you want to give us a brief overview of where FAA says that they're going to go with unleaded fuel?
Really, in a nutshell, and it was, I would say it was a little bit vague even on their part, but at least the FAA did come out and make a commitment to supporting and moving to an unleaded fuel solution. Whereas before, as was pointed out, there really wasn't anything in that area. They're going to leave the GAMI and SWIFT alone, I guess, at this point, to pursue their individual type certifications. And it looks like there's another industry player on board, so there might be a third alternative in the mix. And so I think we have to be cautiously optimistic. We, with a timeline, setting it, out to what did they say? 2030.
2030. So they stated that they will have unleaded fuel by 2030. That's their their line. That's a long ways out. And the
It's a long way.
Green Bellevue and everything else is going on.
Yeah. So I mean, on the one side, obviously, SWIFT and GAMI are just forging ahead, and they're pursuing individual certifications one after another. So it shows progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what it does, I think, is it gives us something to work with. We've speculated that it'll be a year or two or whatever it is. The only commitment we have from the FAA is 2030. Individual industry is trying to make it much quicker, but obviously they are governed by the approval of the FAA. And the FAA processes are really not designed to approve all this many STCs. So the only thing we have to hang our hat on is 2030. I wouldn't go make a speculation much beyond that. And I'm assuming, but maybe not, that the FAA has already talked to the EPA and then extended their dispensation to 2030 also. So the governmental units are in some kind of lockstep in agreement, because you can't have the FAA say, yeah, we'll do it 2030, and then the EPA says you got to take all the lead out in 2 years. I mean, that dog's not going to hunt either. So that doesn't work. So I'm making an assumption that at the higher level, that's all taken care of. So, and I agree with David that there will be more and more planes that will be able to use the UL-94, and eventually the GAMI 100 unleaded will be potentially a replacement, or the SWIFT 100R will be the replacement for 100 low lead, but only time will tell, and there's no guaranteed timelines. If we want to continue down the road, well, let's do what we can today to mitigate lead. Then we can put in the unleaded tank as we've discussed, or the other option, it's not illegal to use leaded fuel, is to wait till 2030 or whatever, and then just empty one tank and fill it with something else. With regard to funding, so let me take a role in a different direction. So with regard to funding, we've been pursuing with the BOA, the entire project of designing, helping us purchase the existing fuel farm, to do an all-encompassing relationship or project. BOA will not do that. BOA doesn't really want to touch the existing fuel farm. I went out with the BOA and I also talked to Rich, and we think that we could put in a single tank and dispenser alongside the existing fuel farm. And the BOA would be able to fund that. And then we would move that project from the 80-20 to we move it to an entitlements project. So we could put in that tank today, do it as an entitlement project. And then later on, we have to, at the end of we have the option to buy the fuel farm by the end of Rich's contract in 5 years. So sometime between now and that time, to deal with that. So that's kind of what's on the table today. So we can proceed with a separate tank, defer the purchase of the existing fuel farm to some point during Rich's 5-year contract. Or we can just say, no, we're not gonna do anything and wait till 2030. So I guess I want to open some discussion on that and to see what people think. Mark, I'll let you watch the hands.
Alder Burke has his hand up, probably to provide an update on the council action.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to state that I want to thank everybody, first of all, for continuing to work on this every month, trying to see what the current status is and what could be happening next. That's really helpful information. Thank you. I will state that the Common Council discussed this at length last night, and I want to say kudos to my fellow alder Luke Fazard, because he really kind of ran headlong into this to try to push this through, and what we got last night was a strong commitment from the city to say we don't want to wait for some future date when everybody might switch over to lead-free fuel. We want to pursue this sooner rather than later. And to that end, hopefully this is still on the table, but if I know in past, a month ago, I think we talked about asking the BOA to take on the project of designing and overseeing the build of approved new fuel tank. And the number that we heard a month ago was about $300,000, and with an 80-20 split, that would make our portion be around $60,000. So the Common Council last night said, we'd like to show our values, put money behind our values, which is we'd like to switch over to lead-free fuel as soon as we reasonably can. And the city council said we would be willing to fund $45,000 right off the top.
Okay.
And then after that, we'd ask the airport fund to maybe tackle if there's more money that needs to be funded.
Yes.
The next $30,000, up to the next $30,000 we'd ask the airport fund for that. And then anything above that, so we're already up to 75,000. If even more money is required after that, the city will again jump in and fund the remainder to hit that 20% matching fund to really show the BOA we're going to do this. we're a partner in this, and we're hoping that that will help them say, yep, the city's willing to do this, and we're willing to come to the table to design this, get this designed and built. So again, the funding has been approved at the Common Council level, and it really is. I really want to again thank my fellow alder Luke Fazard, who really went above and beyond in both Finance Committee and then again even more so in Common Council. So thank you.
And just to clarify, Robert, that 45,000 would not be from the airport fund. The additional
Correct.
30,000 would be, but 45 would be from what?
TIF 3.
Thanks. I don't think you had said that. I just wanted to put that in the minutes.
Okay, so I'll give you the good news now, okay? So,
Sure.
yeah, that whole, the 80-20 thing is off the table.
Okay.
So we can use our entitlements. So remember, we got 295,000 and 150,000, right? So we can use $300,000 out of that. The net cost of the match is 9%. So that would be 27,000 for the entire project.
That would be
So-
really nice.
So instead of 45,000, the number would be maybe more like 27,000, which would help us defer this big bolus we have of matching funds. And then we kick down the road the purchase of the fuel farm, and then we'll resolve that in a future budget. Right? So the city's not on the hook for 45 and half of 30 and all of that. It would be just 27,000, I believe, at this point.
Well, it's good news, but I do want to state that the city did come to the table yesterday and said, we are putting our money where our mouth is. So if it's less money, that's awesome. And
Great.
thank you for that great news. But yeah, the city is definitely committed to moving this forward, not waiting until 2030 or some future date to get this done. So thank you.
We will get it done. I guess if they want to allocate the rest of the money, they can pay us back for the survey.
Ooh.
That'll be a great discussion for you and me over a beer sometime.
Yeah, okay.
Kevin has his hand up, and also Rich and the mayor now too.
Okay, take them in order. You call them, Mark.
Kevin has his hand up longer,
Okay, Kevin?
No, I think Rich had his up first.
but then he took it down.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, just trying to get my video work. Hi. The pilots want this, the airport operators want unleaded fuel. The neighbors want unleaded fuel. Everybody wants unleaded fuel. And I am old enough to remember the transition from leaded fuel for automobiles to unleaded. And there were many different steps, including the automobile manufacturers making cars that could run on unleaded with catalytic converters and all that. And we like the high test stuff. That's what we used to call ethyl, tetraethyl, and all that. And you could still get it after it was actually illegal to put it in cars for quite some time. But there was a cutoff point where it was no longer made and it was illegal to have it and use this. The 2030 date is similar to that, where the 100 low lead will not be available. And we know that people use this for their race cars and all this stuff. It's not going to be available. It's going to be gone. It's not going to be made, even though there may be some tanks with it. So that 2030 date is just that. It's a legal federal mandate. It's not when we should be switching over. So I can tell you from everyone I've talked to, I've been dealing with this issue for 30 years. For some people that are brand new, and it's just the last couple of years, this has been an ongoing issue. Pilots have never liked it. We don't want to burn that stuff. And we want to move over as fast as humanly possible. And and we have a couple of options here. I'm just telling you, from my fellow pilots, flight instructors, and people that I've talked to, just want to we should really focus on moving over as fast as humanly possible. Let the government be bureaucratic and drag their feet like they like to do. and all of that. And then, but we need to make sure we do the right thing. Just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Kevin. Who's next, Mayor?
Rich, I think.
Rich?
Sure. I just renewed or did 8 hours in continuing education to renew my inspection authorization. And part of that is to sit, most of it is sitting through manufacturers' presentations on various things. One of them was a fuel cell manufacturer, another in Wisconsin, another was an outfit that makes carburetors, makes fuel injectors, makes hoses. And the fuel cell manufacturer is aware of the new, well, they've already switched over to what they believe is going to be fine with the new 100 unleaded, that they're changing, they're using aromatics in a lot of different additives in order to boost that octane. Now, aromatics, if we remember, Kevin remembers going from 100 to 100 low lead, that used to eat carburetors and hoses and various other things. Even though we switched over, it wasn't as compatible. And the carburetor manufacturers, the fuel injection, the hoses, all of that, they have not really gotten their hands on this new formula on the 100. So what I'm saying is the reason I think the FAA has given this big window of 10 years is they realize there may be some problems ahead with the certification of the 100 unleaded in some airframes. And there's going to be a catch up. There may be a new float you have to put in your carburetor like they did when they switched in the old days. That said, the 94 UL, which can run in 60% of the engines out there, or maybe a little more, is a plug and play. It's already proven. And certainly that's what we have to do to begin with and weigh down the 100 UL until that's actually certified and out for everything that we need it for.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Mayor Barr?
Oh, my question is that, John, did you talk to BOA and did they more or less agree that they will take on this project? Or we still have to wait for some time? And what is the probability that they will actually take this project?
Okay, so here's the steps. So the first step is the petition. We put in a petition for the fuel farm, and Mark, I don't know if that's went through its entire cycle yet. The petition. Mark Opitz?
Mark, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was having some computer sounds that I didn't want you to hear.
So where are we at on the petition? Is it complete?
We're going to plan for that for April to have the hearing.
Okay, so next step. So once that's done and the petition is complete, then we will contact the BOA because it's a petition project. And the first steps is we will hire an engineer and they will scope out the project, which is pretty simple. Josh and I have already been out there and stepped it off and everything else. And then we'll get a price and some bids on it. And so that will be the next mark. And they can get started on it as soon as the petition is complete. And it can be put into the entitlements. That's already been cleared. We've cleared it with everybody. Once we get that, it'll come back to the airport commission. We'll take a look at what that number is. We've just left the number at 3,000, which previously included the purchase of the existing fuel farm. Although with the BOA handling it, it's going to cost more because you have to pay for the BOA. But we'll see where that number is, and I hope it's pretty darn close. I mean, the good news is we have this year 295. We have 400,000 and some dollars that we have in the bank, and we have to pay the match on anyhow. And we don't know what the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, what the timeline is on spending it. So we have a project and we can spend it. So everything is in place to do it. once we get the petition completed.
So Mark, why can't we do the petition at the next city council meeting? Is there a reason why it has to wait until April? And the second question is that earlier you said the ratio was 80-20. So how did it change from 80-20 to 91-9?
Yeah, because what happened before, we were trying to convince the FAA to do it as a BOA 80-20 project. These projects go into different categories. And because it involved the purchase of a used fuel farm, the FAA did not have an interest. So we took that portion of it out and only considered the new, and that threw it into a different category of funding, which is entitlement. So the entitlement funding is less match percentage, and we already have the money allocated for that. So, I mean, we're trying to figure this out, you know, like I said, this is all, there's a lot of moving parts here. We have to see what flies, and when it doesn't work, then we construct another offer and we go back and say, how about this one? So finally, we are at a point to where we know what we can do and we know what our matching is.
So it's not a done deal yet. So it got some moving parts still then. Okay, all right.
No, it's a done deal. Once you get to you have to get the petition done. Once the petition's done, it's a done deal.
Okay, so let's get the petition moving forward as quickly as possible then. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the petitions is with the city council, so.
What we usually have done in the past is we hold the petition hearing before the plan commission, which then has to make a recommendation on the petition. And then it goes to the council after that. So it requires a class 1 notice. Well, maybe it's a class. Anyway, I always assume it's a 4-week process because in case it's a class 2. I can double check on that, Mayor, but
Okay,
maybe we can even have it at the
next plan commission.
March 22nd meeting, possibly. I'll double check on that after the meeting.
Okay, okay. Well, let's get it going so that we can get it done. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, John. I appreciate that.
So what I'll do for the benefit of the councilmen that have been voting on things that have changed, and Bill and Mike, is I'll put together a document explaining the changes that have been made and what the funding mechanism will look like that's been approved, and what that number is that would be the match, which will be a lot less than what was previously allocated. But I want to make sure everybody's dealing with the most current facts.
So Mark, just for, we need a plan commission hearing for putting the fuel pump?
Yes, we've done that. We did that twice in the last couple of years where we had a petition for the plan commission. You'll recall the land use ordinance. Remember how that was a big discussion?
Okay. Okay, well, you will know whatever it is. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, and so that's an example of the petition process at work. And whether that was a class 1 or class 2 notice, I just don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm looking.
Okay, great. Let's get it moving. So that's all what matters.
Okay, and you know, I want to thank Luke and Robert for coming up with this latest offer. I attended the finance committee, and you definitely moved the bar in favor of the airport, which I can't thank enough. You know, we're trying to think long-term, and without your support, these kinds of things just can't happen. So I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the neighborhood appreciates it and everybody else. So thank you.
And thank you back, John. Your words and knowledge and explanations at the finance committee, I think, were really helpful in getting all of the alderpersons up to speed, which kind of helped us kind of get some commitments from the alderpersons during the common council meeting. So thank you also for your presence.
Yeah, well, we're a team, you know.
Yep.
We're a team. Any additional questions on this issue? If not, then you can expect from me a synopsis of what's changed and the cost. And I will give it to Mark, and Mark can circulate it to the council members and also the commission. Okay, and if there's nothing on that, then let's move on to the next item, the hangar space requests. So I have a couple of questions, first of all, and I don't know how this shakes off. This is something that people have obviously asked Mark. So we had a list of, in theory, 100 people, 80 people, 75 people that put in a hangar request. And we have new people now putting in a request. So my question is our process first in, first out? In other words, if somebody put in a request 10 years ago and say, hey, I thought I was on the list and now I'm not, what is our thinking of, I'll just call it right and wrong. Where should we land on this? So the list is really nothing and we start all over again? Where do we go?
Well, I don't know where to start with this either. We obviously, lists like that get old and stale. I
Yes,
think Rich has his hand up. Maybe he's best positioned to answer it because he's been maintaining it. But, well, why doesn't he go ahead first, and then I will fill in with additional information if he doesn't.
okay.
All right. But historically, and John, you were part of this, I don't know if you recall it precisely, but we had far more people apply for the hangar space than we had available, the lots. So there was a lottery that was done. I think that, frankly, unless the city wants to vet various things and have an auction for these properties, that seems to be the fairest option. We have hangar lists for people that are probably people on that list that may have passed away that are no longer in the country. And I just received a letter from a fellow who wants to be put on the list for 2 hangars, which he will be, 2 multiple hangars, and he wants to be advised where his position is in the waiting list. Well, the city hasn't established a waiting list in that we just took down a list of people that wanted hangars for reference. Also, occasionally, someone would come when they wanted to sell their hangar and ask, back when the market was harder, and then we'd share those the people that we knew about, and people would use that, sell their hangar individually. Personally, when we do that project and we have 25, 35, 40 hangar spaces available, then I think we should advise it. But up until that point, before we actually have any commitment to doing this, I think we use it as a reference only. And if people want to build hangars, well, that could go on a separate list. I know Capital Flight offered to lease the entire field from the city and run with it. So they probably are first on the list.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Matt will be calling me, I'm sure, when I get, after I've said that, but
No,
I just feel that if somebody had put their name in and had been patiently waiting, that they should get some due consideration.
Okay, that's above my pay grade, John. I'm just
I
telling you.
mean, it's above my pay grade too. I'm just bound by what I think it feels like it's what's right and wrong.
That's the whole reason why we wanted to have this conversation, to
Yeah.
get guidance from all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that it would be of value to go through that list and verify its veracity, right? And just contact everybody. Are you still interested? What are your needs? Would you be willing to go into a multiple hangar? We could put together a simple questionnaire. And some of the people, like you said, may have moved on, may have sold their airplanes. A lot of things could have happened. And then we may find out that this list is 10 people long. And then we start adding to it. And you know what? This is like anything else. The day you call them and say, okay, today's the day you got to come up with $200,000 or whatever it is. That's when you really, that's really when the rubber meets the road. And even a lot of the people that said, oh yeah, I'm still interested, are dealing with hangar futures. And when the time comes, they won't participate, they won't fund it. I mean, that's a thought that I have, but I mean, I'm very interested in hearing what everybody else says.
Several raised hands, starting with the mayor, then Robert, then Rich.
Okay,
So, John, you have been very passionate about, the city owning the terminal. So,
Yes.
and me too. So I'm looking in this case that, so we don't really have an unlimited space.
yes.
So would you actually think that we should create some sort of a group which will build the hangars and then actually rent them, whoever wants them, rather than, giving the land? So that's what I would like to see. And then also, I don't think I would want, well, that would be the option. I think in that way, that will provide a much better financial stability for running the airport in the long run. So I think we should consider that option and also consider various options of funding it, even if anyway, John, you are very good at, putting those things together, but that will be my first option. And the second will be that I don't think giving the option to MADC if they want to do the same thing with these hangars, but then we will put a clause that after a certain period, it will become the city property. So just like we have that clause in the hangar after 2028, it could be coming back to the city, but so MADC will be the second. And the third will be that if number one and number two doesn't come to fruition, then since the space is so limited, it will be, we will have to some sort of a rationing system, lottery system, or how does it help the city in a best possible way? So I think we have to see how does it help with the economic development and how it does help the overall for the city of Middleton as well. So I think those are some of my thoughts, which I thought that I would share with you. So
If I'm gonna put my entrepreneur's hat on right now, and if it was me and I was trying to figure out how to do this to be fair to people, but at the same time, make as much revenue for the airport, for its long-term stability, and to prevent having to go back to the city council. The first thing I would do, I would create a valid list of people that would want to be hangared. That doesn't necessarily mean they would own the hangar, but if there's hangar space available, we would like to be in that hangar. So you would have a pool of customers. On the other end of that, I would design the area so that it could use larger footprint hangars. Why? Because larger footprint hangars are more effective, but at the same time, they carry a higher burden rate. So, and then I would, maybe there would be a lead in all of those who would take say, yes, I'll take a 15-year agreement to lease this hangar for XYZ, and then they would sublease it out. The city would take that 15-year contract or 20-year contract and would use that as TIF or whatever. And I don't know how your funding mechanisms is, could even be bonds. And to get the money to build the hangars that would be owned by the city. The city would then lease them out and would take a small percentage out of the top that would go into the airport fund. At the end of the period, whenever these were paid off, all of the money would then go into the airport fund and would do it carry forward. As I said, as an entrepreneur, if I was running as a business, that's how I would do it.
well, that makes sense to me, and I think Mark said that too. And let's start with the process. And also, Rich Murray said that actually verify that there is an interest, and we should have that verified list, not really the old list. I'm with you, John. So I think we have to do what's best for the city and best for Yeah, for everyone. So I have video.
I mean, the first step is to validate the extent of the market and their willingness to pay. And then you figure out how to solve the problem after that.
Absolutely. So let's do that part then.
And Mark, any other people have their hands up?
Yes, Robert and Kevin and Rich.
Okay, so we'll take it in that order. Robert?
Yeah, thank you. Mine's a little bit of a question, based on what I've seen in the past. A lot of these transferal of, who the
Land leases.
the land lease is done privately, and the way it kind of goes, capitalism, right? It's whoever's the right place at the right time, and maybe who makes the best offer. And I'm not quite sure how that works with a waiting list. If let's say I am leasing a hangar, and the next person on the list is willing to pay me a certain amount of money, and the second person, the person after them on the list, is willing to pay 10% more than that. I don't want the first person on the list. I want the next person on the list because they're going to pay more.
You just described the current real estate market.
So, I mean, I just want to make sure that what we're talking about here will work based on what we've seen in the past, where these are all like private interactions that the city has to approve. But basically the reason the list may not have gotten used as much in the past is because two independent parties reached agreement outside of the city completely, and then they come to the city to just say, hey, you have to be part of this approval process for one person to transfer the land lease to somebody else. I just want to make sure that whatever we're doing will work in conjunction with capitalism.
Yeah, I understand. You're trying to say the market force is the market force,
Right.
and we leverage the market force. I mean, that's certainly one way to deal with it, and I'm happy with that. The thing I would like to see is that the city actually own the hangars as an asset, much like the MADC owns the terminal building, and that the group of hangars, they're not having to pay for a hangar and land and everything else. They're just paying the lease to the city. So at the end of the period, they can have a windfall. So, I mean, it's kind of like Einstein. We have a group of people we think are in the market, and we know where we want to end up, and there's some miracle happens in the middle. And that miracle we have yet to define, right? But we have the endpoints.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Rich, were you next?
I think Kevin is.
Oh, Kevin.
Hello. So so there's a whole bunch of things going on here. There's private hangar sales, there's waiting lists and all that. I just want to address the waiting list. And it could be that all the hangars that we have at the airport now are all privately owned, and there's no hangars for rent. And that's really for the legal team, to the legal person, the expert, to decide, do these people have a right to sell their own hangars to whoever they want?
Yes.
And that's been an issue. And I'm really big on leveraging best practices. As far as a hangar list maintained by the city or the airport management for people waiting to get into, say, a city rental hangar, that has to be a legal list. And what often happens is you apply each year to be on the list if you want to maintain your position, and there's actually a fee, and that list does need to be posted so everyone sees it. And the list is updated every year. Now, I don't know if that's the situation with our hangars, because they may be all privately owned, where at a lot of airports you kind of have a mix. You have a mix of city rental hangars, which I've really been a big advocate for, and a list of private hangars. But if we do have a list, it needs to be official. There needs to be an application process and a reapplication process at some intermediate time period, and it needs to be posted publicly. So just best practices there.
Yeah, I think there's an airport, I think it's Des Moines, I'll have to look, where the city actually owns the hangars. And so, and they rent them out, and it's a very large part of their revenue to operate their airport. I don't know exactly which one it is, I'll have to look now. But I know I talked to them to see what their model was. There's a lot of different models out there. But it all starts in the same place, and then that is, what does the market look like? And then what can we do that benefits the airport, that fits the market? But your
Which
point
has
is
been-
well taken. It needs to be something that's no one can refute, right? And say, I was treated poorly and end up, having to litigate, and that's nasty. No one wants
Rich has been patiently waiting, Mr. Chair.
Rich?
Rich is always patient. Just two things, Kevin. Yeah, these are all individual hangars. Some hangars are rented out, or someone will rent a spot in their hangar. Again, peer-to-peer. The list is definitely not a formal list. It is simply what people drop or mention. We keep it at the airport as a courtesy in our terminal or office and for reference. And the point I want to make, and actually I'm loving the idea of the city actually owning these hangars, and the financing, the creative financing is a great idea. If for some reason, and we'll set up, that'll be a two-tier system, obviously, the people that own and have their rights, and then the new development. But if that's the way the new development gets paid for, no one can complain about it. But what I'm looking at is, if for some reason we go with a lottery or a whatever in a land lease, I want to we should not allow people to speculate on the property and just sell their lots at a profit when the city could be making that money. We should put the fee structure up where it's reasonable, but market. When you put your application in for the land lease, if we go again with land lease, and it should be non-transferable. Either you build or the city absorbs your share and then takes the next guy on the list.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we set up a secondary market. We're going to have people and their cousins and their sons and their daughters applying for slots just to sell and make some good money, because we have a hot market right there at Middleton Municipal Maury Airport, and people are ingenious about making money off of.
Oh, yeah. The other thing that's nice about the bigger hangars is they're dual purpose. If we have bigger hangars and the city owns them, they could be commercial hangars. And they could be things in there that we could put in there, like avionics shop or a paint shop, or it could be other kinds of things that complement the airport's economics and the city's economics. I mean, this is all to be determined, I think. We've got a ways to go. And but I mean, I think there's possibilities we need to explore. Mark, who else do we have?
Luke has his hands up, and then the mayor and Michelle, but I wanted to just add one quick comment because I've made a chance, and I guess I could have put my hand up. And that is that with the master plan, what I did ask Mead and Hunt yesterday to do is instead of showing individual hangars like they've shown on their various development alternatives, where it just was all the same box with a note indicating hangars are various sizes, but then they all showed the same size, rather than convey something like that, which someone might take as gospel, and these are the hangars and this is the configuration. I asked them instead to look into the feasibility of just having a hangar development area with a color code.
Yeah.
So that it gives us that flexibility that you're talking about, Mr. Chair. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay,
Luke
thanks.
was next.
Yeah, Luke?
Awesome. Rich encapsulated what I was going to say about the secondary market, which is awesome. The only other element I would add is that I think it's always hard for a current committee or commission to feel like they should or can speak for future commissions. But I think as much as possible, when we establish this new mechanism for how hangar space is going to be allocated, that we, as much as possible, try and codify it as the mechanism in the future, such that a future, in 4 or 5 years, if another commission decides to reallocate the group that, gets on the list now and feels like they're doing all the right things, are not kind of, the rug isn't pulled out from underneath them. And as a result, there's any sort of mistrust or favoritism that when given such a precious commodity. So I would just say, when we do develop this, let's plan on codifying this as a hard and fast rule for into perpetuity.
Thanks, Luke. Mark, next. Who's next? Michelle?
The mayor.
Mayor, okay.
I think Michelle, I already spoke. I will let Michelle speak and then I will. So go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so I think the idea of transparency is so important.
Yes.
I like the idea of the city owning and figuring out. And then I was looking on the City of Middleton Airport website. There are 2 things regarding to hangar. There's a hangar keepers agreement and a hangar land lease tab. So I would just reference those and, keeping some consistency and moving forward. Just
Yeah.
keep them.
I think the hangar, so I think that would ultimately be modified to where, and not the lease it would be a slight modification where the lease would consist of not only the land, but the structure built on the land. And that person could still be a hangar keeper and then sublease underneath them. So it would follows the same taxonomy. It's just different definitions of some of the words.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Mayor?
So I would just like to separate the old hangars where the city had the land lease and the new area. So I think what we are proposing here, and I agree with Rich and I agree with Luke and the others as well, that so we are really thinking about the new area, and we have a great opportunity here rather than somebody, like Rich said, it's very hot market. We have only limited space there. So we want to make the best use of it. And if there's any money to be made, it should be for the benefit of the city and the airport. So that's why, the model was fine at that time. And now actually having 0.25 cents per foot or going up to 0.35. Hello, I mean, we have only limited land, and it is a great opportunity that for the city and the airport to have a new model where we actually build the hangars and then we lease them. So I think I agree with Rich, I agree with Luke and the others well. I think that's going forward, that's the way to go.
Well, this is a complicated topic. And everybody just kind of got hit with it tonight, without thinking about it. And maybe the first step for us is to determine what the market in that list might look like without commitment. And, that could be by contacting the existing people. It could be by getting the new people that inquire. But I mean, at some point in time, you need to have some form of a list. How we triage and allocate from the list, we can decide next. But at least let's see what the market space looks like. Because I mean, if you only got 2 people that are really serious, that's one thing. If you got 200, that's a different problem and we require a different solution. So I'd like to just quantify the market and see who's really there and I like the idea at some point in time, if we do have a list, maybe they put $500 down on the list. They put some number down. And if they drop off the list, that kind of keeps the people, the kickers out of the way. I mean, that's a thought.
And we did that, John, we did that back in 2004. We
Okay.
had a $500 fee.
Yes.
So we thought of some of those things back then. And of course we had pretty strong demand, but as Rich noted, we also had at least one speculator, if you will,
Okay,
who was shrewd and came in and built hangars, and lo and behold, the demand far exceeded the supply fairly early on.
yeah,
And so he, and since then, from what I understand, some of the transactions, I don't know details, but I've heard that the value is well, I shouldn't say many times, but it's definitely much higher than what they paid to build the hangar. There's people making, selling for a handsome profit. So that's the private sector for you.
so I guess, go ahead, is somebody?
I agree with John, with you completely, and what Mark said is absolutely right. They made a killing, and at the whoever's expense. I'm with you, John, 100%.
And I think from Rich, if you weren't going to say this before, Rich, I'll say it quickly, but I think only one person, from what I've heard in the last year or two, who's selling his hangar, reached out to Rich to say, hey, who's next? I'm looking for people to sell my hangar to. The rest of it has just been word of mouth, and who knows who is. Rich, is that what you were going to say?
Well, two things. The first, yes, Mark, excuse me. One person did, and he's leading the parade and trying to maximize his hangar sales. So he wanted it widely advertised. It wasn't like he didn't have bidders. Second thing, I just want people to know the market can go down. In 2008, you couldn't give your hangar away. Well, you could, but a lot of people did. So we're in a good market right now, and that would be fabulous for the city, and it would make a lot of sense. If we're one stock market bubble away from being at the bottom when this project comes through, then the economics of the hangars are in a different situation. Just wanted to mention that as a caution, but heck, that's, even if we turn dirt tomorrow, we'd be 3 to 5 years down the road. So
Absolutely, because they have to figure out how to get to the hangars and where they go. I guess to try to bring this to some close, it should take a motion. So, I'd like to make a motion that we survey the market, which consists of the existing list and others that may have an interest, and come up with some idea of the size of the market. And I think that can be done also with a simple survey. They could ask them some basic questions about how much space and what kind of aircraft. Of course, we know most of it anyhow. And, when would they be interested to it? And would they be amenable to a gang hangar, et cetera, down the road? And then from that, then the airport commission then could reconvene. That gives us 30 days to think about it. We can review the list and we'll figure out what next.
I second it.
Okay. That's pretty long. That's a long one, Mark, for you to
Yeah,
write.
I'm
can
trying to make sense of
consolidate
it. You said survey the market is how you started, and I think what you were saying is you wanted to validate the list that we have. You wanted us to check, right? Isn't that the first, what you said was the first step?
Yeah, I think we should validate the existing list, but also should incorporate anybody else that has an interest. And I would take the two of those together and I would define that as the market.
So are you saying validate the names in the existing list and publicize the creation of how are you saying survey the market? Like how?
We're just basically, we're just surveying pilots and the list to determine an interest, no more different than the POCO survey did to determine the temperament and what the state of the market space is. So we can at least try to quantify it. That gives us a little time to think about how we might best construct something that meets the needs of the airport, the city, the pilots, the intersection of everybody's needs. I
We
know.
should see if we can run it in the paper or something. Yeah.
Does that make sense, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna say we should see if there's like a thing in the paper or other ways that we can post that this is just in case we can to try and reach as many people as possible through as many channels as possible.
It's not a formal list. It's a survey.
Right.
Right, to determine the interest in hangars, the current level of interest in the hangars. That's it. We're not committing to making a list or anything else. And then once we see what that is and we have our arms around it, then let's take it to the next level and start putting a business plan behind it.
We can easily buy a list of Dane County aircraft owners or get the email and send that out. It's easy enough to do. Anything that might be based at 4,000 foot runway. So there's some money involved behind that, but we could do that depending on how much we want to spend on this.
I mean, I think there's a real opportunity here, and we can look at a couple model airports that are doing what we were talking about and find out how they handle it and what their revenue stream is and how they funded the hangars that they're leasing out. I mean, this is a very strategic project, and we need to talk to some people that have walked down this path before us to see what we can learn.
So Mark, do you have a motion? I heard a motion and a second, and I'm still not quite sure what the language of the motion resolves to.
I'm usually pretty good at crafting them, but I've been struggling with it too, Robert. So,
Well, the thing is,
interpreting what you want. So
we'd
you're
like to-
asking for,
Go ahead.
go ahead, John.
I said we want to survey the market to determine the interest for new hangars that may be available at Middleton Airport. And that survey would include existing people that are on the existing hangar list and others as can be contacted.
Making sure that, there is no space right now, but it will be in 3 to whatever duration, so.
Well, it's just a survey. There's no commitments that there will
Yep.
be anything available.
Yeah, it may not be, so.
So the airport master plan had a user survey. And Mead and Hunt's chapter, whatever it was, 3, I don't remember the chapter, there was an attempt to gauge the demand. So you're basically asking for an update to that. Is that what you're saying, or?
Yeah, I think because what happened with Mead and Hunt, they took the list that was in Maury Airport and front office, and they just used that as gospel. I don't know if they went back to all those people to resurvey and determine the level of interest.
I think what they did is they basically publicized, they asked for people to indicate their interest at the airport.
Yeah.
And the controversy we had back then was that the people that were asked were people who are already at the airport, and there wasn't an attempt to gauge are there others that we don't know about. And that was the whole concern about the user survey too. So that's why I'm trying to be very careful to figure out what you're asking. I mean, I totally understand validating the existing list that Rich has been kindly maintaining. That makes complete sense. We've got names there, and that shouldn't be too hard to contact people and say, hey, are you interested or not? Would you put, what are your specifications? Would you put down a deposit? I mean, there's various questions you can ask, but where I see red flags is your request to basically publicize to whom. I mean, I don't want to go down that road again where we have that controversy.
Yeah, I think one of the questions we could also ask is, are you already based, at Charlie 29? And that will determine if people, are already there. I think we can ask that. Yeah, I'm open to, I mean, it's just a survey. I mean, we're really not making any commitment.
How about
Yeah,
this? May I make a suggestion? I'm sorry to interrupt. We don't have a good motion crafted yet, and I'm trying to help us.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, how about this? Why don't we go through the list that Rich has and just basically gauge current level of interest? Who's in, who's out on that list. And from that, we'll have an idea. I don't know. I don't know whether you even need to make a motion, frankly. I mean, we just wanted, what I recommended in the staff comments was to have some discussion to provide some direction for how you want us to field these requests. You know, we have people who've made a formal proposal. We have someone who's making a confidential proposal. Now the mayor knows about that one. And we have people who've just called and said, hey, I want to be on the list. I mean, you know, that's what we're dealing with. So I think going to that list that we have and figuring out how many people are serious and want to put some skin in the game, I think is the first step, and we can report on that at maybe the next meeting, and then you can maybe give us further direction.
I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't include all of those different categories that you talked about. I wouldn't limit it just to the, you know, to the Excel spreadsheet. If you know people that
Right.
want hangers and have asked, I mean, we should make it as complete as possible. You know, and we can figure out the questions to ask. I don't see that to be it. I mean, this is, like I said, we're all thinking about this right now, but I think the bottom line is that we need to create a survey to assess the market space, to provide some guidance on next steps.
I think I agree, Mark, you have a very good point, but you know, we want to really gauge, we don't want to make it national, it will be more local. And we do want to know, you know, what the demand is, so.
I guess I would just throw out what I think Mark is saying is there's like a passive way to do this, and there's an active thing. An active surveying costs us money. We have to figure out who are we going out to, who's going to do the survey, how much does it cost to reach out to all these people, whether it's advertising to say, hey, we're doing a survey and contact us or whatever. But a passive thing is just take the people who are on the list and any other people who have inquired. And that's a quick and dirty thing where we can just say, if they've reached out to us, we can check back with them and see if they're still interested. If we're trying to reach a brand new crowd that we don't even know who they are, that's going to cost us money and at least advertising the fact that we're actively looking.
Well, I would be happy with the people that have actively contacted us. And I'm sure if once the word gets around to the current set of hangar owners, people are not going to be shy.
Right.
And will be contacted. I think that in itself is a good step without the advertising.
I tend to agree that you're right. It's more passive for us, a little bit more active for the community of pilots who might be interested. So what we do is we basically just start contacting the people who we know about, and word will start getting out that, hey, you know, if you're interested, I hear that, you know, C29 is asking about interest in hangar space, and we'll get some more people contacting us. So I think that's probably the way to handle this.
Mhm.
Although Rich has his hand up, and my guess is he has a lot more knowledge about this than I do.
Probably not, Robert. Well, I'm just saying it easy enough to just put out an email to all the hangar owners too. Say, we're looking for a survey. You probably know people, if not yourself or your renters, people want to build hangars. The city's trying to gauge interest. And I bet they'll knock your doors down.
Yeah, I mean, we're just surveying and assessing the interest in the market. That's all we're doing.
And I agree with what Rich said. We are not doing a Polco survey or any of that. It is just sending email and just making, creating the awareness, and then people respond. Not any survey where you actually pay money, so.
Well, we have the ability to create forms for free using, you know, there's free software, there's free apps out there, free survey apps, you know, things like that auto, you know, where they fill them, they populate themselves when people, when they record it, they populate the field so there isn't any, you know, management to have to do with, you know, filling out answers. I'm not saying this very well. The point is there's ways to do this now that are automated that don't involve much staff time, you know, so that's, okay. I'm not so worried about that, but
the idea like a survey monkey.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's ways to do that. So, but you know, we also need to figure out, would people be willing to put down a deposit, you know, $500 to hold their space and all that. So I understand what you want. If you're basically saying is the motion to survey the market to determine the interest in new hangars, maybe that's all you need to do.
That's good enough. So I'm okay with
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we don't leave the meeting without some direction. And some expectation of what we will get at the next airport commission meeting.
Well,
And
and I'm not promising this for the next meeting. I'm telling you
I
that right now.
understand.
I can't. I've got too much on my plate and I've got to prioritize this with my boss.
No,
So
I appreciate it. So that's the motion, and if nothing else, we can get an update on the status between now at the next meeting. May not be
I've got, as
completed.
the mayor knows, I've got some
I
projects.
I would
that are-
say next couple of months. I think we have a no hanger space. It's going to be a while. So I think it's good to get it started, but there isn't really, John, you would agree that there isn't really that kind of a hurry. So it takes a few months. That's okay. So.
Yeah, so we're not started till we're started. So the point of the motion is to formally get us started. So do you want to read the motion back?
It's simply, you made the motion, seconded by the mayor, to survey the market to determine the interest in new hangars, or to determine the interest in hangar space. How about that?
That's good enough. And that's staff, will work with, and staff will work to develop a set of questions, right? And I'll work with you on the questions. It's simple enough.
Or maybe Rich can help out. Rich, you and John want to work rather than Mark? He has a very limited time.
Yeah, no, I think it's easy enough to put something together in a Word doc quickly. I have a fair idea of what was
Okay.
discussed here, and bring it up maybe the next time, and we'll kick it around and add some stuff, and we can send
Well,
it
what
out.
you can do is, if you develop the document and the questions you want, do that on your own with whoever you're working with. We can
Okay.
easily put that into, we've got the staff to put that into, populate a Survey Monkey or Polka or whatever it is. We can do that and not, that's not much cost. So
Okay.
Well, I'll get with Rich, so add to the motion that Rich and I will work on the survey, and I mean, we can do it in an hour or two, is easy enough.
Excellent, excellent. Mark's time is very precious and very limited. I think that's awesome. I like that.
Thanks to all. Do we have a motion in a second? Should we vote?
Sure. Well, we should reread the motion one more time, and then I'll call for discussion. How's that?
the motion's to survey the market to determine the interest in hangar space. At
And,
C29.
And Rich and John will work on it. You want to put that in there or?
Yeah, and that the airport manager and the chair of the airport commission will collaborate to develop a survey of questions.
Yes.
And then work with city staff to create the right instrument or something like that.
Exactly, absolutely. That's it. Okay, so we have a first and a second.
Did you want that as part of the motion?
I think it should be.
Yeah, I think so.
It's descriptive of what we're gonna do.
Yes, John, so.
Okay, so then the motion is to request that the chair and airport manager, well, let's keep it simple the way it was, to survey the market to determine the interest in the hangar space at C29 with the understanding that the chair and airport manager will prepare the questions and work with staff to create the right instrument or something like that.
Close enough.
I was going to add, Mark, if people are concerned about, the term survey and something becoming this formal process or overhead expense, whatnot, to say in there, the process will utilize existing resources, lists, and tools.
I think it's clear to say
Okay.
that the chair and the manager will prepare the questions and work with city staff to distribute the survey,
Okay, yeah.
to implement the survey. How about that? To implement the survey. Okay.
Great.
I'm good with that. We have a first and a second. Any additional discussion? Since we've already kicked that all over the block. Robert?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Okay, hearing no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. All right. So we will, for next month, we will keep on the airport master plan project update. We will keep on update of the lead and unleaded. We will have now an update on a future hangar space. And those will be recurring. And then if anybody has any other thing that they'd like to add to it, as always, let us know. And also I need to, I will write a explanation of the current status of the fuel farm and funding, and I'll make sure all the airport commissioners and the council get that.
And I have a report back from a previous item. It was a class 1 notice last year, which is for the last petition. We've done petitions with class 1 notice. So we could have that hearing on March 22nd, which is what I will recommend.
Perfect.
So,
Okay. Does anybody care to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you for a lively discussion and a great meeting. And hopefully we can continue to make good progress.
Great job, John.